podcast you're about to listen to is from a book series on post-qualitative, new materialist and critical posthumanist research. I'm Karen Murris and chief editor of this new Routledge series. You can find it on the following website, www.postqualitativeresearch.com.
This is a podcast introducing our latest co-authored book, Posthumanist Research and Writing, Agentic Acts of Inclusion, Knowledge Forced Open. It is authored by me, Professor Anne Reinertsen from Norway.
And me, Dr. Louise Thomas, academic at large in Brisbane, Australia. We acknowledge the Indigenous people of the lands on which we think, learn and write. And we acknowledge the Indigenous elders of these lands, recognising the multiple ways of knowledge, knowing and knowledging. Anne, how would you describe what this book is about?
I would say that this is about open doubt, writing as continual becomings, being active in life itself, major and minor perspectives influencing each other and constantly changing together. It's a book about forcing knowledge open, post-foundational writing and thingambobbing. Or put differently, it's about knowledging, multiversing and reauthoring writing processes. Ultimately, it's a book about lifting the importance of the subject position in research, writing with subjective data, knowledging as a democratic change field, simultaneously possibilizing and creating knowledge compositioning beyond power. It's about material realities, realizing individual potential, non-binary bodily variations, performance all the way, consciousness, learning, and difference. Subjectivity, thus as futurist and constructivist opening up of the fields of virtuality, as Guattari tells us. Guattari further states that the unconscious remain bound to archaic fixations only as long as there is no investment or engagement directing it towards the future. A thingambob is a personal thing, the name of which is unknown, temporarily forgotten, or deliberately overlooked. We use thingambobbing to resist, to sit with and in uncertainty, ours and that of the knowledges we engage. We use thingambobbing to discomfort, to possibilize knowledge as beyonding, to open up for knowledge as an interaction, to create unconscious invested in the future, to create tentativisms. Well, Louise, how would you describe the key focus of the creation of this book?
And I think that can be best expressed through the story of our conundrum of what title we were able to give our book. If you remember from the beginning of our sowing the seed of this project, we had a working title of Riddling the Real and Ridiculous of Academia. We had found ourselves frustrated by much that was happening within academia, things that were being done to and by academics, and the impact of this was having on our thinking, research, and knowledge. As one response to the way in which we saw knowledge and thinking being controlled, we wanted to force knowledge open, to decomfort ourselves as thinkers, to open ourselves up to new and other possibilities, to multiverse our knowledging, to riddle as a way to force open thinking about what was real and ridiculous. This gave us, we thought, a title that was humorous and serious in its focus. We did have an interesting response, however, when we put this working title forward to the publishers towards the end of the writing process. It was not that they didn't appreciate the creative element of our suggested title, but unfortunately, it didn't meet a key criteria for book titles: searchability. Do you remember how we laughed at the irony when we were told that, unfortunately, the primary driving factor for titles these days is online searchability? That is, titles need to be keyword-based, which had sadly made more creative titles such as riddling the real and the ridiculous in academia untenable. But we were not so naive that we could not see the point they were making, that searchability via online domains and search engines was the modern way of exposing our product, of exposing all products, really. However, for us, the irony was in the fact that a book focused on forcing knowledge open, shifting beyond the corporatized knowledge domains that can narrow thinking, had its title determined, limited by the workings of the very corporatized global domains that we wish to challenge. But there's more to this story. There was an addition to this story, Anne. I recently mentioned to a colleague that we were working on this podcast, and she immediately alerted me to an AI platform that can create complete podcasts. All you have to do is upload your complete text on which the podcast is to be based, yes, a complete book, and the AI will create the text and voices for the podcast, whatever length you want. How bizarre is that? I can see how, in the busyness of life, it could be tempting to get AI to do this task for us.
Yeah.
But again, so ironic that this could even be contemplated for a book and a podcast that has as its whole premise the loss of knowledge and knowledging. Anyway, we can assure you, listeners, real and artificial, that it's the real Anne and Louise you're listening to and hearing here.
Yeah.
And we've written a few texts before, Anne, some of them deliberately messy and breaking grammatical rules. We're good at that. And drawing on open-ended sentence construction. Can you tell us, Anne, about the style and the design of this book and how it's organised?
Well, yes, it is organised, but still open-ended in 3 sections with 9 chapters. Well, the reason why we do these things is to invite readers in as rewriters so that the book can engage constant reauthoring practices and hopefully continue to produce newness and inspire this futuring that we think is important. So section 1 is the theoretical and philosophical groundwork on knowledge and knowability. We introduce our riddling phonology. We offer a text on writing as text, as a response to the complexity and uncertainty of knowledge. Number 3 is the ontologies of indeterminacy and freedom. And also we offer a theoretical and philosophical work on authoring agencies, force and flow, the paradox of slow and space. Section 2, we offer, or we have called the actioning of theoretical thinking and knowledging, minor fugitive research policies and becoming desires. So there are 2 sections, chapters in section 2, minor research policies and inclusive educational becoming designs, and becoming technologists, thinking Greeks, and of orientation. Section 3, we call futures governing the presents, new space-time domains for tentativisms. One chapter on working out tentativisms in the Knowledge Academy, Education for Fugitive Futures. One on reauthoring methodologies. And the last chapter, of course, we're hanging upside down for another retake with Ion and Eros, both because they are both with us in this book.
Well, listeners, readers, we hope that you enjoy exploring those various sections of our recent book, and we hope and we really encourage you to engage with that text in a way that you can bring something of yourself and your thinking to what we have written and what we have enjoyed writing. And there's no more time to say anything other than to ask people to wait for our next book, due for release towards the end of 2025, which is about the politics of vulnerability and trust in education. In that book, we ask the hardest questions of them all, which are, what might a word then hold? And who holds our words? Or should we say, what holds our words? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you would like to know more about this chapter, please visit the website www.postqualitativeresearch.com, and please stay tuned for future podcasts.